Here are two different leg workouts I performed last week, and I wanted to walk you through the rationale and kind of show off what I have here at Glute Lab Fort Lauderdale. So this first exercise, I should say one of the workouts, the first workout is more glute dominant, and the second workout is more leg dominant and just more daunting in general. But all right, so workout number one begins with the Body Masters low back machine. Now, the reason why I chose this first and hip thrust second is because I've gotten so strong at hip thrusts, they're intimidating right now. I always try to set PRs, but I'm just, it's too daunting to go for PRs, which I'll get to in a minute. So this Body Masters low back machine was actually discontinued in probably the early 2000s, probably over 20 years ago. But I used this machine way back in the day and I loved it. I just recently figured out how you could load plates at that front lever position. So I did the stack for 30 reps. Then I load up 75 pounds and did it for 20 reps. And then my third set is 100 pounds for 15 reps, which was a new record. But this, loading the plates out this far, because torque equals force times perpendicular distance. So even though it's only, 75 and 100 pounds, it's so far out, it probably is equal to the stack itself, which is 300 pounds. So this is really a lot of weight. And this bent leg hip extension, so it's funny, it says Body Masters low back machine, but it's not a low back. This is bent leg hip extension. You don't feel this in your low back. This is like doing a hip thrust pulse. But you can see I kind of put myself in the frog position. I feel it more that way. But it's bent leg hip extension. It takes your quads out of it, and you feel it almost all in the glutes. So I annihilated my glutes before I moved on to hip thrusts, which drastically diminished the weight I could use on hip thrusts. So this is 6 plates per side, 585. I've done this for 10, I only got it for 5. The next set, this is 495. I've done this for 20 reps, but I only got it for 10. And then the third set, I got 405 for 12. I've done that for 30 reps. But it's funny, whenever my glutes look the best is when I'm strongest at hip thrusts. Right now, I've been kind of focusing on my squats and deads just for the last few weeks. And it's really hard to keep all your strength up on every lift. It's something that I've noticed kind of happens when you are your strongest in general. Kind of all the lifts go up. But it is easier to specialize in one lift compared to another. And right now, I'm definitely focusing on my squats because I can squat again. I'll get to that in leg workout too. So now that I did bent leg hip extension and hip thrust, I move on to the gluteator. This is hip extension and hip abduction at the same time. And it's amazing. This really hones in on the glutes. And this is basically 4 plates, 2 plates per side. I got 30 reps. And then the second set I added 25 on each side. So basically, 2 plates and a 25 for 20 reps, which both of these are tied PRs. The thing about these and hip thrusts, you can see if you have any belly fat, it makes it look so much worse. It makes you look like an out of shape, beer-bellied lazy slob. But that's because you're pushing out against your stomach. But anyway, I got 20 reps here. This is really hard. My strongest girls are using like a 45 and a 25. And the beginner females use a 25 on each side. So now after the gluteator, I move on to glute medius hip thrusts. These are my favorite glute medius exercise right now. And I got to where I could use 45 pounds for 25 reps. And I didn't want to go for 30. It's just too many reps. So I moved to dumbbells. The plates are nice, especially the BC Strength plates, because you can hold on to a 45-pound plate by the handle. And having handles on the plates makes this really convenient. But this is I believe a 60-pound dumbbell, and I got it for 20 reps. And then I move on to an 80-pound dumbbell, which I got for 15 reps. But this is working, people think it's working the up leg. It's working the down leg, the grounded leg. You're driving laterally. And if you kind of freeze at the top, you see that right glute medius. Well, that dumbbell is really far away from that right glute medius. So again, going back to torque, this is going to induce a huge torque on that right glute medius. So you'll feel it in the top leg, but the grounded leg is the one being primarily worked. So now here, this is a PR, 80 pounds, 15 reps. This was brutal. And it's, you get this right, you're moving just in the frontal plane, left to right, and you're stretching the glute on the way down and then shortening it on the way out. So after these, I'm pretty annihilated. I've hit 4 straight glute exercises, right? The Body Masters low back machine, the hip thrust, the gluteator, and now the glute medius hip thrust. You want to hold on to something stable here. Both things I held on to on these sets were moving around, but I tend to use the squat rack, but I thought this would be better filming it here. So now I move on, I do just a little bit of hamstrings. I did 3 sets of 3 Nordic ham curls. And here I like to flex the hips a little bit. That's why I built this Nordic ham elevated like this, because you can flex the hips and go all the way down into full knee extension. It works better when you're slightly flexed at the hips. If you try to be straight up, like in full hip extension, you don't get as good of a set. So I did, just a few sets of 3 reps. But I find when I do these on an off day, my hamstrings stay stronger. So I throw these in on my glute day. It doesn't beat me up at all. And it just helps my deadlift strength, keeps my hamstrings strong. So after the Nordics, I think I did 1 more exercise or 2 more. I move on to seated hip adduction. Now, I have the strongest adductors. This is the stack, which is 305 plus an additional 100. So 405 pounds. I believe I got 25 reps, which I think tied a PR. I think more of my adductor growth comes from squats. Squats work the adductor magnus so well. But I always throw in some seated hip adduction because I feel like it works the longest and the brevis well. And the adductors, they look really cool when they're developed. So I threw another 100-pound plate on. So this is 505 pounds. I think I got 8 or 10 reps. Maybe less, I can't remember. But I was so fatigued off of the first set. Maybe I only got 6, but I was so fatigued. Now this is like workout number 2, which is more brutal. I did some warm-up sets and hit a low bar 405-pound squat. Now, I've done this for 3 reps before, but this was cool because I haven't done it in a while. You can see I turn my squats into good mornings. I've always done that. My quads have never been strong enough. Even though I work them hard, my knees just get sore. My quads get sore. I can't do as much volume. And then this is a 605-pound sumo deadlift. I've done this for 5 reps. My max deep squat is 455, and my max sumo deadlift is 655, but I think, actually 650, I think. But I almost hit a 675-pound deadlift twice. I almost locked it out. But the reason why I'm happy with this is I haven't been able to hit these numbers. I haven't been able to do squats and deads lately that much. So this was cool for me. It feels good to be using big weights again. Now I move on to high bar chain squats. So this is 130 pounds of chain. So this is 225 at the bottom and 355 at the top. But it does allow you to stay a little more upright because it's easier at the bottom. And you will feel this annihilate the quads. But interestingly, I did a set of 10 here. The last few reps I felt were like a hip thrust. I was feeling my glutes up top at the lockout, and it was brutal. It felt like I was doing a hip thrust. It was crazy. So I love using chains and bands to overload the lockout. A lot of people like me, I fail the squat at the top. I fail the deadlift at the top. I need to be doing, lockout work. And then I moved on to stiff leg deadlifts. So keeping the hips really high, taking the quads out of it. And I got 495 for 5. I think my record is 6. But this felt good. I think I could have gotten 6 if I really wanted to. But sometimes I've strained my hammy twice doing stiff legs, so I try to keep a rep in the tank. Now I move on to leg extensions, and a couple of things about this leg extension. Number one, you want to do leg extensions for the rectus femoris. In order to maximize growth of the rec fem, you got to do leg extensions or sissy squats. You got to do a single joint knee extension movement. But I like this knee extension because it's plate loaded, it hits the top. So strengthen the quads in a short position. All the other exercises you do for quads, strengthen them in a lengthened position, a stretch. This hits them hardest in the squeeze. So that's why I have this kind of, all my other machines you can see are high quality, and then I have this crappy plate loaded leg extension, but I love it. And then I moved on to the lying leg curl. This is 235 pounds, so almost the whole stack. I got 12 reps, tied a PR. Whenever my hamstrings are super strong, my deadlift is strong. So doing Nordics and glute ham raises and all three types of leg curl machines, seated, lying, and kneeling, I don't feel like they're the best have the best transfer to deadlifts, but it's just every time I'm my strongest at deadlifts, my hammies are strong as hell too. All right, now I move on to banded sumo belt squats. I'm trying to strengthen my sumo deadlift lockout here. And so I'm trying to hit quads. So this is my top set I did. I have bands on there. And I got 25 reps here, but this was brutal. My quads were screaming so hard here. It doesn't seem like it seems like this short range of motion, but I'm telling you, I quit doing lockout work. I've been doing partial leg presses and more band work and really trying to strengthen my knee extension lockout, and it helps my deadlift. Deadlifts, you're not going that deep. When you do sumo deadlifts, most people aren't super upright like the best deadlifters in the world. Most people, especially women, you're bent over more. If you look at your sumo deadlift and how much range of motion you're using in the knees, you'll see that it's like a partial, and you need that to be strong. And then finally, I move on to banded 45-degree hypers. So we do round back, feet flared to make it more glute dominant. But when I do these banded, I try to keep my feet straighter and I come up as tall as possible. And the reason why is because if I was rounded, I wouldn't be stretching that band much. If I'm neutral and come up as high as I can, you stretch the bands so much more. So I got 25 reps with this, which tied a PR. And that concludes workout number 2. Workout number 1, I did more volume. I did several sets of all the exercise. Workout 2, I only did one hard set of everything. But I like doing that sometimes. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed it.